Hello and welcome back to the next part of the Conversation Design Masterclass. So, what we previously saw was our basic things, and just to give you a recap, we saw about how voice flow works and how this sort of an architecture is what's followed in Convergrid. All the voice flow typically, which you can do is you can continue this as different chains, something like what I mentioned before here. Yeah, so where you have a decision tree sort of a thing, where you have different responses and different paths, different intentions, and so on. Whereas convertibility is pretty straightforward. So this week we thought of focusing on how ConverGrid works, the internal testing tool. So for that, let's actually open ConverGrid website. Yeah. So once you're at beta.convergrid.ai, if you're signed in, you'll be able to see your bots in the home page as well, or you can see it in my bots. Yeah. So as you may have realized, the bot that we created last week is not that perfect, right? It's not very personalized. It doesn't have personality. We can of course improve this, right? So that's what we're going to do this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our internal tool to improve this bot's performance using prompt engineering and conversation design. So this is our internal tool. So you may get a similar access to this tool, although not as complex as this. So let me just run through this platform. So here you have the option to see, analyze the bot's conversations, see the paths that the users have gone through to navigating through this bot, the different links that they traversed, and the way they interacted with the bot, and so on. And we have this option for configurations. So this is where we edit the system prompt. So by default, this is the system prompt. So it's pretty straightforward. It's very simple, which is why it's not perfect. So we have to, of course, improve this. So that's what we're going to do. But before that, let's just go through every other section. So extensions is where we can set all of the different extensions, where the bot should appear, on which websites it should appear, and so on. So unless they use our extension using our guide, it won't directly appear unless you use the ConverGrid extension, which is this extension. Oops, I do not have the extension. So there's an extension called ConverGrid extension. So if you visit ConverGrid extension, is there in the Google Play, the Chrome Web Store actually. Yeah. So you have this extension. If you install this extension, you can preview the bot in any site that you want to by setting it here. Or if they have actually included the source tag, which is there in our guide as well, docs.convergrid.ai, then if you will be able, if you use a convert connector, if you include the script tag in your website, then you will be able to see it in any website that has this convert bot, that you have set it through the extension section. Yeah. So this, let's just run the pane, then you can see how it will look. Yeah. So it will be a widget here. Yeah, the same thing. So of course this is scalable. So if you resize this, if you make this full screen, it will adapt according to your size. Let's just make this smaller. Oh, yeah, you can see. Yeah. So it adapts according to the screen size. Okay, cool. But that's not what we're interested in. Then we have the message configs. So the message configs are how we set the welcome message. So the first interaction that the person has with the bot, that is where we set it. So let me just open beta.convergrid.ai again. So we had shut it down. So you notice every time we visit, it gives a different message. See, hello again. This is a welcome back message. How can I assist you further today? Hello again. So that's the sort of the thing that we actually deal with in the welcome message and the welcome back message. So you can add different instructions, different URLs. If you use UTM tags, of course, that makes it even interesting because then you can give different promotion codes and whatnot. And then we have this source section. So this is similar to the sources that we included here. So it's the same thing which you can include it from the backend. So you can see the websites that we have included here. Yeah. And then you can update the sources as well. So yeah, of course, you'll have to put documents, YouTube links, and so on. Then we have something called guardrails. So guardrails are limiting factors. How we, if we want to restrict the conversation without going overboard, we can use guardrails for it. So we have colon configs for that as well. So we can sanitize the user inputs, removing any unnecessary characters or white spaces. Temporal queries making meaning time sensitive information. Masking personal identity and personally identifiable indexes. So it's called PIIs. And we also have policy config, so we can make it so that the bot will never respond in an inappropriate manner, never include abusive languages or offensive content, and so on. And yeah, so these are the raw configs. So this is how the bot is configured, which if you edit here, it will of course be affected there as well. So what I'm going to do is here we have the option to set the bot. So I'm going to set it to GPT-4. Yeah, I think GPT-4 should work. And let's just run the bot. Or let's just use GPT-4o. GPT-4o is of course not very accurate, but it uses a lot less data, that is tokens, which will end up reducing the cost for the bot. So we want as much as possible to reduce the cost for the bot, right? Otherwise it's not going to be profitable. So you can see that it's initializing. If you refresh the page, it will sometimes be ready. Okay. So now we'll be able to actually engage with the bot. If you send a message like hi, the bot will be using this prompt to respond. Yeah. So, but this is not what we actually want, right? So we want the bot to improve. So let's give this bot a sort of a personality. So let's start with by explaining how we actually define it. So this is a sort of a template that I actually made. So this is a sort of structure that I actually built. So these are sort of things that you can alter so that the bot will actually engage accordingly. So this is a tried and tested prompt that I have come up with after multiple iterations and multiple testings. So this basically means that we first of all tell the bot who they are, that is the name, and a short personality about them, and who made it, and its purpose or whatever. So yeah, so this means that these are optional parameters. If you want to, you can add some more. You can either make it built by whom, or built by creator, or built by team, or whatever. And then you can give an instruction like, so you will be given a question which is delimited by triple backticks. So triple backticks means this character. So it's this character, triple backticks. Yeah. So they'll be delimited by triple backticks, so chat history and a set of documents. So that's why we're passing the bottom. So we're passing the chat history and the documents. Yeah. So then we're saying it to take a deep breath, understand what the user is saying, think carefully, and provide an answer only if it is there in the documents or the chat history. So we're sort of giving an instruction. We're telling the bot what exactly to do. And also we are telling it never to mention documents provided. So instead to respond with this creator has mentioned this. That means, for example, let's say that the creator is, let's say, SLVlog. So SLVlog has mentioned this, or according to SLVlog, or as far as I know, or something similar to that. So never to tell documents according to the documents provided, because that kind of breaks the flow, right? It's not very intuitive. And we also tell it to be fun and engaging when responding. So, and to maintain its persona as the name of the bot. Yeah, so that's the sort of the basic idea. So let's just customize this part to the bot guide. So let's call it your bot guide. The bot guide. And let's say a friendly, and let's just give it a cat assistant of ConverGrid that assists users with work with ConverGrid would be fine. Yeah. Yeah, so since I have included cat assistant of ConverGrid here, I don't really need to mention built by ConverGrid because it's understood, right? So then we are going to say is you'll be given a question delimited by the triple backtick. So this part you can keep it as it is. We're telling it to take a deep breath and answer using the chat document and chat history only. And then we can say insert respond with, let's just make this convertibility as mentioned. According to convertibility. Or as far as I know, or something similar. Yeah, so this sort of gives an enough leeway so that the bot will be able to answer. And yeah, so we say always be fun and engaging and keep maintaining a persona as bot guide. If you want, you can call it another name. So it's gonna, I'll show you that as well. So in addition, if the user intent is one of the following, so this part let's ignore for now, and let's just bring this part. So this part is important. Never forget to include this because it won't work otherwise. Okay. And I'll explain what this does. So this what this does is it takes the chat history and it appends it to this variable. And yeah, this is also the same. So this appends it the context to the document. Okay, so now let's try sending hi. See, it gave a cat emoji. And if we want to improve this further, what we can do something like you can make cat sounds. System when answering. You can also make cat sounds. Okay, good. So now let's try it again. So let's try I. See, it makes cats noises. So if you say how are you, let's see. See, it communicates like a cat. So that's sort of more intuitive, right? And it feels more engaging. So let's try something like can you book a plane? So this is something it should not be able to do, right? Let's see what it does. Okay, so this handles the error, which is good, but sometimes it may get confused. So it may hallucinate. So in this situation, it was okay, but sometimes after a long chat history, it may hallucinate. So let's just try another hallucination scenario. Tell me, so let's say something which is not there. Interact with bot. Because there's not something that is there in the documents that I provided, right? So let's see. Okay. So this is technically a hallucination because okay, I think it has taken from this article. Let's see. Okay. And yeah, we have something called lang chain as well. So lang Smith, which will show all of the different ways that people have engaged with the book. So we can see to analyze how things work. Okay, so these are from a grid beat. So okay, so it seems like there is a parallel conversation going on. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is the chat that yeah that I was engaging with. Yeah, so we can see here the documents that it has used. That's what I told you. It replaces this part the chat history part variable with the chat history, actual chat history. You can see here, right? So this is the messages that were sent. So that's what has been replaced here. It's the same thing. This variable has replaced, and the documents part has replaced this whole thing up until here has been replaced by this. Yeah, so as you can see, these are a bit of a hallucination because I mean it is correct, but it is also incorrect because it is thinking out of the box and giving a response. This is not something that we want, right? So we have to, of course, counter this. So that's what we are going to actually do in the next part. So let's first of all, so this is enough for a basic understanding to see how things work. But that's when we come to things like intents. So let's just say, what are you? And if you say hi again, okay. So if I say hi again, if it says me hi again, I mean it just says meow. I'm this thing. See, it's like it doesn't recognize that I'm saying hi for the second time, right? That's not something I want. I want it to understand that I'm reading it twice, like I did in the previous one in chat itself. So that's the sort of thing that I want it to do. So because of that only we came up with this concept called intents. So let me get that part. Yeah. So in addition, so this is the next part of it. So if the user has an intention to do any of the specific tasks, so if the user wants to greet the bot, if the user wants to ask a generic question, if the user wants to ask how to do something, if the user wants to make or interrupts the bot and whatnot, this is the thing that we want to focus on. So that's the reason why we have this sort of intent. So this is also, we have made it pretty generalized. So unless you want to absolutely customize it, you don't really need to, but you can, of course. So that being said, I think we covered in this now. We covered how it can actually do. We covered the personality part. We covered how it can how we can actually do the prompt engineering part and how the admin beta platform works. So I'm going to split this into two lessons so that it will be easier for you to understand how things work and it won't be too long. Okay, so this is the first part. So first part what we did first we looked into how admin with LangChain, and we also looked into the prompt. Okay. Yeah, so in the next part, let's focus more towards how we can do use the intents and how we can make this small talk much more better. Yeah, so see you in the next one.